So, Kristin, do you remember when I told you why I wanted to add YouMap to my toolbox as a Say Things Better coach?
I do, because when you went through the UMAP process, you were telling me that it just gave you so much insight into explaining why you were unhappy in your own career. You thought you were doing what you should be doing, and it gave insights, and you were just saying to me that that would really give you a catalyst to be able to talk to your clients about what was important to them.
Yeah. And so at first it was, okay, I want to help people talk about what's important to them, talk about their strengths, talk about their values, communicate their UMAP, and find out how their UMAP can superpower them as an entrepreneur. Like, what about my strengths should I be using that I should be talking about in my messaging? Mm-hmm. And what should I be talking about is really what my purpose was to begin with in adding UMAP coaching certification to my Say Things Better offering. So I wanted to help them talk about those things that were their purpose, those things that were their heart center for their work. But so this new thing happened because I just got my certification, and I'm like, let's go. So I had a new client, and this was our first phone call. It was an hour-long phone call. It was a bunch of discovery, but I had sent her the UMAP book.
Mm-hmm.
So like, before we start working together, just read this book. I wanted to have a head start, which is really what UMAP gives me as a coach. It gives me a head start to say, I can see exactly who you are. And so my idea was, I'll be able to help you talk about it then, because I do messaging work. But in this case, having an idea of her strengths, both, for positive and for negative when we overuse our strengths, and seeing what her values were, it gave me such insight into how she communicates, what's important to her in terms of the communication that she receives. And it was just mind-blowing, because I hadn't thought that far. I had seen it as this one way to extend the benefits of what I'm able to offer as a messaging consultant, but I really hadn't thought about what's going to be the impact on my understanding of a person who I'm coaching.
That's one of the things that I love about UMAP is I feel like I'm blindfolded when I'm talking to a person because I don't have those insights. But when I see someone's UMAP, this picture unfolds.
Yeah, it becomes very clear. We were talking about these different recipes, like when your input, which is all about like gathering information. Can you tell me a story about how like your input might have been in conflict with your achievement as a value? So she's like, yeah, I'm constantly having to try and get stuff done, but I want to get the whole thing like super thoroughly done. I want it to be very full, and I want to have done all the research so that the final product is something that is the best possible product.
And it's a gas and brake problem, right? Her achievement value is let's go, let's get it done. And the input is like, wait a minute, we don't have all the information. I could see how that would be a conflict for her.
Yeah. And feeling like a failure instead of communicating about how she works. So we were talking about the value of having somebody who does all that research and communicating that outwards. So messaging isn't only about getting a job. It's about recognizing for ourselves what's good about what I do. So saying like, when you feel like a failure because you're not achieving, let's reframe that so that we can see what is achievement about what you're doing with your input strength. So instead of saying, I can give you the fastest answers, say, I'll give you the most thorough answers. And
wow, I love that. You're reframing our negativity bias. We have this negativity bias around how we do things, but now we're seeing like the value add.
Yeah, exactly. So it was like this incredible breakthrough of, instead of trying to achieve things the way somebody else would and then trying to apologize in your communication for that, just focus your communication on what you're actually doing, why it's valuable. And then it was just so clear. And I had the same breakthrough when you were talking to me about my woo. Shar has had these same breakthroughs when you're talking to her about intellection and input and learner, right? Like so many people that I know now who've gone through YouMap have had these breakthroughs where we start to understand that the things that we've been apologizing for are so often the things that are our superpowers.
I love it.
Yeah. It was really, really powerful, and super powerful for me to be able to go through her strengths and say, okay, when you're restorative, I see input, I see restorative, arranger, empathy, and responsibility. So I'm also seeing themes. I'm seeing no influencing themes.
Mm.
And I know that part of her role is sales. So,
oh, wow.
right. So for people who don't know, who are going to end up watching this, influencing themes in sales are really helpful. I've got woo, I've got, communication, and I've got these ways of putting a message forth to people through story that will connect to them at kind of a heart place. Mm-hmm. She's got input, so she's gathered the data. She's got restorative, so she's fixing the problems. She's got arranger, so she can really see quickly how all that data fixes the problems. Yes. And so the thing that she's going to tell, though, is not like a personal story of how this might have happened. She's just going to present the data in an efficient way.
Right.
And her criticism of herself was that it comes across as cold, or it comes across as not influential enough. And I said that might not be her most successful approach to sales. Mm-hmm. That trying to communicate through influence when what you really do is gather and explain data is not a good idea. So
she can leverage that authority value and come across as an expert instead.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what we said.
I love it.
Yeah. And not just that, but status, to say, okay, look, if you want my role to be somebody who is like super chatty and builds these relationships, like what I'm really trying to do is get you things efficiently. So send me communication partners who are really interested in the efficiency. Send me people like for example, our friend Kellen Barfield. She really likes things to be efficient. Now she's great at building relationships. I love her so much, that like we have this incredible relationship and a working relationship where we complement each other's strengths and personalities. But I know I can be very verbose and I can go into a lot of words. Yeah. So I know that when I am trying to deliver information to her, I have to try and be more concise in the way that I deliver those things.
I bet your strategic helps you with that.
It does. Oh, thank you. It does. It does. And so does my developer, because I'm using it to try and create small differences, small changes in the work that we're doing through email campaigns, automation, and A/B testing, and some of the stuff that is part of communication that's just so granular and so like to do that I just know from all these years in e-commerce. So it's just part of it. But we have our own way of communicating. But for this client, when she's presenting and asking her boss for support, it's important for her to say, I will be your top producer if you send me people to talk to who are interested in receiving information this way. If you get a feeling like they're in a hurry and they want to know what the results are going to be, I will do all the research on the back end. I will see all the data. I'll be able to use my arranger to quickly pick just the pieces that matter and arrange them into how they fit into the bigger picture, and use that to very, very clearly seal the deal. And she was like, I can do that. And I was like, great, that sounds like a win. And that sounds like a certain kind of salesperson.
Yes, you're customizing your selling style to the customer's buying style.
Yes.
I love it.
It's your communication partner. So in terms of say things better language, it's I communicate this way. So instead of trying to match me up with people where there will be a conflict, first send me as many people as you can who are my ideal communication partner and for whom I'm theirs. Here's what I can offer. And so leaning into that as a strength means you'll be the best at that. And that's where you get authenticity, because it is you. That's where you get authority, because you are the leader in that. And you can lean on the value of the work that you've done to claim that authority. And that's also where citizenship comes in and meaningful work, because it's creating a contribution to the workplace where she is that is unlike what other people can do, but it's for the service of getting more partners in the door.
Yeah, that's amazing. Does she sell internally or externally?
Externally.
It would be amazing if she identified the type of person in the organization that's most wired like her, and they would be her point of contact.
Interesting. I wonder if that's an option.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they have clients who just, come and are referred, and then it's about closing a big deal. I think if you're thinking long-term in terms of the relationships that she's going to be like a manager of, that would be a good match.
I'm curious, what was her reaction when you started to point out like these breakthroughs and make these?
She was taking notes, and she was like, oh, I don't have to try and do this way. And, because most people think that in order to be effective in something, you have to be effective in that thing the way that you've seen other people be effective in it. And so the challenge for her was, how do I go be effective that way? And I said, that's not how we're going to work. I don't work from a place of manipulation
Right.
I work from a place of, what are the things that are in your toolbox? What are the things that are your strengths and your values and your skills that you enjoy? What are the things that are in your personality that make you ideally suited for this? So finding the 4 pillars and saying, this is who you are. I can help you communicate intentionally, but only from this place.
Right.
So having that self-awareness as a basis for who it is who's communicating to begin with was liberating, and it was like a fast forward on the work that I do. So the communication intentionally that happens afterwards, it's sustainable because it comes from your YouMap. It comes from exactly who you are, and you don't try to stuff yourself into some other way of communicating just because you think that that's what somebody else is going to say yes to.
You've uncovered just something brand new, that people come with these archetypes in their mind of how their role should be carried out, and they need to shove the square peg into the round hole to model that archetype, instead of saying, how can I leverage who I am and still accomplish the same end goal, but in an authentic way for me? That is huge for people.
So you and I had talked about my writing a book is a goal. If I sit down by myself in a room and start typing things, I'm looking around and picking up my phone. I'm like, where's the connection here? Where's the human connection? I need that. I can't just sit here and do it. And it doesn't make it any less my goal. I want to be able to write Say Things Better books so that I can take my message and put it out to as many people as I can. I want to empower a whole world of intentional communicators. That's my motivation. I have to do that. It means that much to me, but it's a burnout skill. Yes, I can sit there and do it, but it's a burnout skill that doesn't actually take advantage of my strengths either. So my top 5 strengths are communication, woo, positivity, developer, and strategic. None of those are executing themes.
Right.
I'm going to sit down and do this thing. So what you recommended to me was that I try to use my woo, my communication, and my positivity, and create some kind of awesome interaction with another person that then creates the product of the book. So Shar had recommended a couple of apps, and we had also talked about Zubtitle, where if I do these 30-minute, I could even go in and talk to you for 30 minutes and, ideate through things, or I can or I can work with Dave Pennington on stuff like that, where he helps me too, frame things. But where I'm giving somebody my knowledge, and I talked about this with Dave on a call the other week, or earlier this week, if I take the knowledge that I have and use it to develop somebody else, maybe training somebody in Say Things Better is what creates the content of the book. You
use communication to write a book on communication, and you record them And you could do it like live coaching that gets transcribed and people are watching you coach.
Yeah. That's even another level.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
So this is how like I can do the things that I want to do anyway, make the impact that I want to make, and still end up with the result. Book is the result. I can sell a book once I have it because I think everybody needs it, but it's about creating the book. Trying to create the book the way that other people create the book, where you do a lock-in and you lock the door and you're like, I'm going to sit down with my typewriter. It sounds like a miserable few weeks to me. Mm-hmm. And now that I've experienced the magic of fully living in my YouMap and getting this sense of fulfillment, I don't want to take ever one step backwards from this.
Right.
I don't want to go and lock myself in a room where I'm not using my strengths.
I love it. It's so transformative. It's interesting how people go through life not tapping into the tools they have. They're just kind of going through life with all these tools, and sometimes they accidentally use them. But when you start to look at every situation and say, what tool can I use here? Your effectiveness just goes to the roof.
It's being intentional.
Mm-hmm. That word's coming up a lot.
Being intentional about my life. It expanded what I do in terms of my intentional communication.
Mm-hmm. But you know what's really interesting? People will look at you and say, oh, I could never create this program and become an entrepreneur. Or I could never be the creator of a career profile. The thing of it is all we're doing is walking in the strengths we have. They have their thing, whatever that is.
Yeah. And
when you are using your unique talents and abilities, you will rise in your particular area as well.
Right.
It'll look different than what we're doing.
Yeah. There are so many things that all these other people do that I could never do. A lot of people, a lot of things. And a lot of them are things that I used to value. So it was interesting, thinking about what I find important, like what my values are, and then looking at how other people were achieving those things. And that life, that path wasn't mine. Mm-hmm. And you hear about this all the time, like not to play the comparison game. But what people don't tell you about the comparison game is that you're not only seeing another person's results, you're seeing another person's YouMap.
Yeah.
You're seeing either they are or aren't fulfilled with where they are, and it just happens to be that that's where they are. You don't even know if what their results are something that they even want.
I love it.
Maybe they have things on a piece of paper that they've checked off, or maybe they just ended up that way by accident. Mm-hmm. When we're intentional about the way that we use everything that we've been given, and I believe we've been given certain superpowers. And if we are aware of those things, we can use them in our communication. Mm-hmm. Another thing that came up in her skills that she enjoys, you're talking about negotiations, talking about sales, talking about all these other things. And I was like, well, what do you really like? Talking through some preferred skills, one of the things that she really, really likes, where she feels happiest, is in art.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I, she didn't know like exactly what kind of way to make art. And one of my suggestions was, if she's looking for, and it was also communicated that her values for like achievement, status, influence, that these are things that she felt she wasn't achieving through art. Mm-hmm. And there's also a cultural value that was communicated about how if you can't sell it, it's not of value. Mm. So if you're not trying to sell the art, that it's not of value to create it. And how I feel about that.
Right.
Because creation and creativity is one of my primary values, and it's one of hers as well. So it was identified too that she was telling herself these stories, self-talk about creativity, and how the creativity itself was something that wasn't of value unless it could produce something saleable.
Right.
And so I suggested to her, as one of the things that she does, to create art that is something that people can use to make some kind of a difference. So either it's like donated and then auctioned off, or that it's something that is usable art, like a vision board. Mm-hmm. So, if you're helping somebody to create vision boards, that might be something, and especially because she's got input and arrangers. So that's perfect for like collage and vision boards, because input is all about collection and pulling things in that you think are important. and then arranging them, like actually having the vision to go, okay, these things go here, and using that vision board to be restorative, to fix problems.
And that's how she could exert influence as well, influencing through those visuals. I love it.
We were talking about all the pieces of the YouMap were coming out, and just having this, it's not that I'm not effective without it. You know, like I have incredible results with people who haven't gone through this. I just did a session with Fanny at Venture X this morning. I've worked with a bunch of people that we know, including yourself. So it's not that there isn't being effective with this. I think all the coaches that there are people who are consultants, people who are managing other people who in some way need self-awareness for themselves. The world must be YouMapped. It feels very urgent to me now that I know how much extra it brings and how much more efficient it makes a coaching process when you can instantly know somebody. That discovery process is expedited.
Yes, it's exactly what it is. I am really curious to know, having gone through the YouMap process and then facilitating breakthroughs with someone else, what was the difference in what you valued about the two different experiences?
Well, that's an interesting question because I really like the discovery process, but it felt like so I enjoy the discovery process. I enjoy using my intuition to be able to sense things about people and then use my communication strength to put those into words. So I kind of like hearing what people don't say. And I like also the validation of my abilities when I'm able to do that without a lot of information. And in fact, like when I go in to do brand discovery and articulation, I'm looking for, like, let me not look at the website. Let me not look on social media. Let me only like close my eyes and hear first. Listen to you talking to me about what's important to you that people know. And then we can go and look and see what's actually being communicated and do an audit of that. But coming into things without any kind of preconceived notions is something very freeing about how I have been working with Say Things Better. So I like that. When I work with YouMap, though, I'm able to see some things that tell me a bunch, but there's no way I can ever know everything.
Right.
And so once I start to like get the stories, it confirms what my intuition is. There were things that came out like the value for achievement, and I think we were talking about that. Is that where you can monetize it? Like if you're able to sell something with it, then you qualify it or you classify it as an achievement rather than the achievement of getting
measurable
done.
for people.
Yeah. So it was like, okay, the how are you measuring thing was really where the discovery came in and how it came up off YouMap, because our stories are really what aren't in our YouMap.
Right.
I can imagine stories. I can conceive of them, especially because I have an acting background and I can look at the words in a script or the words on a YouMap and put the story together. And in fact, I said to her, I gave her like 5 examples of things that I bet were the case. And she's like, that's totally it. Like, for example, I said, I bet when people don't come to you fully researched about something, you wonder what they're asking of you to do. And I bet that if you use your restorative strength too much, people see you as trying to be a fixer, and you're very efficient with like your restorative, your arranger. You're like looking for the solution right now. Like she said, yeah. And I said, and I bet because you have empathy and you have responsibility, like you're trying to find that fix for them so much because you sense their need even bigger than it is. Like you're over feeling what their need is. So you're identifying a problem, trying to fix it with your restorative by using everything in your input and showing them how it like goes into the big picture, but without communication as a strength. So where you come into conflict with this is, I want to be able to help. And she said, that's exactly it. So I can imagine the stories. A lot of that comes from my work in theater, from being able to see words in a script and see how things are described or how people are described by other people, and then being able to understand who they are. So I have that. But having it, having the stories come out in our conversations, having these discoveries, it was validating of what my instincts already were. So we started with, have these things ever happen to you? And she was like, are you like a fortune teller at a carnival? How do you know me so well? This is our first call.
That's amazing.
And then it came out.
Yeah, it's almost like it guides you on how to narrow your question set right from the start.
Yeah. And I want to get a lot out of it too, because I have strategic in my top 5. So when I help people, I mean, I kind of want to spin this around to look at the board, but it's somebody else's work and I don't want to share it. But like I have a whole giant whiteboard worth of work here that shows the process, the strategic process of identifying steps 1 through 5 in the Say Things Better method. We're showing a communication partner over here, communication partner over there. They're different. How do you communicate to them? What are the communication events that you need in order to talk to those people? I'm using my strategic all the time. I want to get things done too. Like, and it's my fuel. If I look at my YouMap, your strengths aren't just your top 5. YouMap coaching helps you to identify your driver, which for me is communication, your passengers, which for me are woo, positivity, and developer, and your fuel, which for me is strategic. So strategic, like I've got to do this through strategy. And I'm just doing everything else because like communication is what drives me. I must do this kind of work, and this is how I'm going to do it. So it does come up that I want to be able to work really fast. I accomplish a tremendous amount in an hour with a client, and that hour usually leads to about a week of them unpacking it and taking action.
That's incredible. I think you deserve a gold star.
I would love a gold star. There are emojis for that. Well, anyway, I just wanted to share with you how excited I was about my first YouMap plus Say Things Better coaching session, because it was really eye-opening. It was so much more than I even thought it could add to my business. And that makes me feel like there isn't anybody who shouldn't be getting YouMap certified. If they're in any way helping another person or wanting more insight about how to identify qualities in other people that they're going to have to work with, even if they're not managing them. So my goodness, the insight and the understanding that it gives me of myself and of other people in the world. I feel like Mel Gibson in What Women Want. Do you remember that movie where he like walks around and can hear all the women's thoughts in their heads out loud? So I feel like with YouMap, I can look at this and understand so much about a person.
You know what's really exciting for me? I've been working with people and having these breakthroughs, and what's exciting for me now is watching other people experience what I've been experiencing. And it's like, now you get it. You get this sense of legacy and purpose that I'm experiencing on a daily basis. I love that that's being shared with other people now, because it's one thing to hear about a breakthrough that you've given to someone else, but to hear about now that multiplying into the world and now all these other people are having that. It really gives me the sense of expansion of purpose across the world. It's extraordinary.
Well, thank you for the gift and for your friendship and partnership and letting me explore this and also just unload my excitement onto you.
Well, it was a gift to me as well. Thank you.